Hello, everyone. Please take your seats. We will begin in about 5 minutes. If we have folks outside, please encourage them to come on in. We appreciate everyone here today. And just a few housekeeping announcements as folks make their way. Bathrooms are located on the south side of the building. We also have childcare activities available today, and this is located in room 5 for those who would like to receive those services or utilize those services. As a note, we will be collecting community questions during this event. If you would like to submit a question, there are colored note cards at the check-in table. Please grab one of those, and our runners throughout the event will be collecting them. Just raise your hand with the card, and we will grab those. And finally, relatedly, as a reminder, this is a nonpartisan event hosted by 501c3 community organizations. Questions must be directed towards all candidates, and questions will be screened for time and/or combined to remove duplication. This presentation will be in English and will be translated in Spanish by Teresita. And I'll pass to Teresa to support anyone who needs translation services.
Buenas tardes a todos, gracias por participar en este evento. Simplemente quiero dejarles saber que habrá interpretación disponible. Si gustan interpretación, hay unos dispositivos al frente, a la entrada, si gustan pasar a recibir uno. Solo para repetir lo que acaba de decir Marisa, hay baños ubicados en el sur del edificio. También habrá cuidado de niños para quien guste participar en eso. También estarán aceptando preguntas de la comunidad al frente en donde se estuvieron apuntando a la entrada. Hay unas tarjetas de color que pueden escribir sus preguntas y alguien va a estar pasando a recogerlas durante el evento. Gracias.
Thank you, and we'll begin in a few minutes.
Testing. Okay. Welcome, everyone. How are we all doing today? Good? Okay. Okay. Good energy all around? All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Fresno Unified School District Board of Education Candidate Forum. My name is Amari Lake, pronouns he, him, and I am a senior at Edison High School. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and moved to Fresno, where I have been a Fresno Unified student since the 5th grade. I am one of the current statewide strategy interns with Californians for Justice. I am also a band member of the Edison Golden Brigade. I am also a current juror for the Fresno Unified Youth Court. I'll now pass it on to my cohort, Xiomara.
Hello, everyone. Hi. My name is Xiomara. Most people call me Sio. I'm also a senior at Edison High School and a part of the statewide strategy team. Some of the things about me is that I like to do advocacy work. So I'm currently working on against gun violence in the school system because we know that is very common recently. And for more mental health resources. Previously in the past, I have worked on foster youth campaign work and more mental health resources. And I am also a juror for the Fresno Unified Youth Court program. We are very excited to facilitate the space here. So we're going to first start off, introduce our candidates who are running for the FUSD School Board Trustee. So starting off with Area 2, we have our current trustee, Elizabeth Jonathan Rosa. There she is, yeah. And then we have Josie Aquino. And then following that, from Area 5, we have our current trustee, Andy Levine. Then we have James Martinez. And Emma Villa. Now for Area 6, we have our current trustee, Claudia Cazares. And then Daniel Bordona.
All candidates running for trustee for Fresno Unified School District were invited to join this forum, and we appreciate everyone's attendance and participation here today. As a quick note, this forum is not an endorsement of the participating candidates. The goal is that the voters have an opportunity to meet the candidates, learn their platforms, and ask pressing questions from the people in each district. Attendees can submit questions in writing using the note cards provided. Questions will be chosen that cover a range of topics. For instance, any inappropriate questions will be discarded, including personal attacks on one or more candidates, explicit support for one or more candidates, and questions that are not related to office. However, similar questions will be combined to avoid duplication.
Sorry. Also, we are asking to refrain from clapping after the candidates' responses. Thank you.
We want to firstly give thanks to CMAC for having this event being broadcasted live for those who are not able to attend to be able to see the event at home. We also want to give great thank you towards the Big Red Church for allowing us to host this event here today. Now, however, we do have additional announcement, and that is regarding the bathrooms. We have gender-neutral bathrooms which can be accessed by the side door in the lobby over there, if you can follow my finger, and to just take an immediate right into the courtyard. Apologies. Anyways, I want to also thank all of you here today that are attending, as this event is being hosted by Central Valley United for Power, also known as CVUP, in partnership with Californians for Justice, Power California, Faith in the Valley, Youth Leadership Institute, Woven Coalition, and CMAC. Our vision altogether is to build people power in the Central Valley so that we can create a region rooted towards dignity, justice, and thriving conditions for current and future generation of young people. This event centers students and young people and was created by young people for youth. We want to make sure that our agenda and questions reflect concerns on students, young people, and their families. Now, today's agenda will include the following for all candidates, and we will begin with opening remarks, short questions, followed with community questions, then closing remarks, and then lastly, important announcements. We're hoping to have the opportunity to allow all of you community members here today to ask questions and have it answered. However, we are going to be beforehand give apologies that some of the questions asked may or may not be able to be asked because we want to be safeful for the sake of time. And also, we might also have to combine your questions with one question to form one questions. And we want to just make that quick announcement.
We will now begin. Candidates will now have up to 2 minutes to share their opening remarks, including who they are and why they are running. Let's begin with District 2. First, Elizabeth Jonathan Rosas.
Good afternoon. I first need to extend an appreciation to the organizers of this event for holding a forum dedicated to youth. You are truly the people that we're here to serve. You are the people that are currently in our schools or recently graduated and have experienced our system and are closest to some of the policy issues and decisions that we make every day. I also see some of our staff here, and I appreciate that as well. So thank you for holding the forum, and thank you for the invitation. My name is Elizabeth Jonathan Rosas, and I've had the utmost pleasure of representing the Roosevelt region specifically, but truly all of our kids in the system, in the Fresno Unified System, and our charter schools for the past 7.5 years. I consider it a complete and total honor that people have entrusted me to represent them with something that is so important as their child's education. I know every day that parents are making the choice to send their kids to Fresno Unified to entrust us with their social, emotional, and academic well-being, and I don't take that lightly. So I appreciate having the ability to represent. I'm also very proud of the things that we've accomplished over the past 7.5, 8 years. We've been able to expand social emotional learning supports, health supports, mental health supports, mentoring, CTE, and I can give specific examples, but I know I have 1 minute of each one of these, as well as investing in our facilities, and most recently, really applying an equity lens, which is something I've been looking to champion because I know our people in South Fresno that have the oldest schools have been wanting to see equity really truly implemented in all of our programs. And so I've been happy about the progress that we've made, but there is a lot more that we still need to be done. As budget is going to be contracted, we need to make sure that those cuts are as far away from the programs that our students and our staff need. And so experience matters, and I hope to continue bringing the experience I have into this new era of Fresno Unified. Thank you.
And that's time. Thank you, Ms. Jonathan Rosas. Joseph Aquino, you now have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Good evening. I just also would like to extend my appreciation to the individuals who are hosting this forum. I think, let alone I feel some form of a connection as it is a youth-led organization. And with that being said, I'm the youngest individual who is on the ballot today. So we are a testament to tomorrow, and we are a testament to today. My name is Joseph Aquino, and I am a proud Fresno State student and lifelong Fresno Unified student in our district. With my experience of serving as a student trustee in 2022, which has to be one of my most valuable experiences, and to see the issues and quite frankly, the unique opportunities that our district provides our students. With that, I'm running because I want to ensure that our students get the utmost very best and correct representation to ensure that I was one of those students. I was in the classroom less than 2 years ago, so I know what those struggles are like. Moving on from graduation from Hoover High School, I moved with the Foundation for Fresno Unified Schools and co-collaborated in working with the Fresno Unified School District's first ever mental health initiative that we can tackle on student mental health, curating student success events and increasing our scholarship awareness. Being in the classroom as a leader at Thomas Elementary and Lincoln Elementary as a teacher's aide, getting a really good insight to see how it's like to be an educator and the challenges that each of them face on a day-to-day basis. And I'm very proud to represent Area 2, and I'm running to fight for bold systemic change to ensure that all of our kids' needs are met.
Thank you, Mr. Aquino. Thank you, Mr. Aquino. Now we move forward towards Area 5, starting with Andy Levine.
Can you hear me? Good evening, and thanks also again to the organizations and especially the students who have put on and are leading this event. My name is Andy Levine. I'm proud to represent Area 5, which is the Fresno High region. Got elected in 2022 in a special election, officially succeeding the late Carol Mills, who unfortunately passed away. And so I've had the honor and the big shoes to fill of filling the remainder of what would have been her term. And I'm honored now to be able to go to hopefully earn my own full 4-year term on the board. I came in 2022 at a time that we were just really fully coming out of the pandemic. And so nationally, including Fresno Unified, we've seen unprecedented levels of chronic absenteeism, just real barriers for our students and families on getting back to school consistently. And so a big part of my focus in the first 2 years has been really trying to break down a lot of those barriers at the school site that's preventing many of our students from getting to school consistently. A big part of that is being alongside many others, our labor partners and others, in making sure we're bringing in state funding for community schools to go from 5 community schools last year to now 19 community schools this year that are really providing wraparound supports for students and families on school campuses. Also increasing the enrollment of our students in Cal Kids, $500 or more in college savings accounts. Over 3,000 more students have accessed their accounts since I passed a resolution in March. Now we're seeing incremental gains in our student achievement scores, and certain schools that are seeing dramatic gains. It's really about leaning fully into seeing the dramatic improvements on student outcomes that we know we need and we deserve, and I think we can achieve around our new literacy initiative, a really important decision over these next couple of months to hire and find our next full-time superintendent for Fresno Unified. That'll be the most important decision that I and others will make on our time on the board if I'm still able to be in this position. And then really engaging the community on the really 2 to 3 to at most 5 big goals around student academic improvements that we know we need, rather than currently the hundreds of scattered goals and initiatives that are preventing us from being able to focus in on those big academic improvements for our students.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. We'll now move forward to James Martinez's response.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you tonight, and it's so great to see so many people who have taken time out of their day to actively engage in this forum tonight. It equally warms my heart that this is being sponsored and led by youth. As someone who works with youth at Fresno State on a daily basis, it really shows that they can step up to the plate of leadership and produce such events such as these ones. I am a product of the area of Region 5. I grew up with my mother in a single low-income family household. I attended Fort Miller schools. I graduated from Fresno High School in 2004. I went on to go to Fresno City College and transferred to Fresno State, where I graduated with my bachelor's degree in 2010. I entered the workforce and then decided 6 years later to go on and get my master's degree at USC. And then now I currently sit as a trustee on the County Board of Education representing this area, as well as Area 3 on the, which mirrors the district or the Board of Supervisors district. And so to be up here running for this seat 20 years after graduating high school is truly an honor. I'm glad to see that there are so many people interested in representing students. The basics of my campaign is really simple. It's really getting back to the basics of what our educational system was supposed to do, which is to educate our students. My focus will primarily be closing student achievement gaps and working with our community and educational partners in order to do so, and also take a hands-on approach to being a trustee, to be more engaged, to be more active, to be more accountable and responsive to the needs of the community as well as the region itself. It really is a testament to my upbringing and the person who raised me that I am sitting here before you today running for this seat, as well as with two and several other qualified candidates up here as well. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. We will now have Emma Villa to lastly respond.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for those that have coordinated and did all the work to put this together. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to sit at the same table with my fellow candidates. And I'm not a public speaker. It's a little uncomfortable. I tend to do one-on-one. I am a longtime resident of Area 5. Right now, I currently am an advocate, a mother, and an educator. That's what I do. I help those that have no one else that will help them. I am their voice. I am a fierce advocate for them. It's a 24-hour job sometimes, recently spending overnights at the hospital working with someone in crisis that no one else will assist, and that's what I do daily. As far as my education goes, I have a master's in education, an administrative and service credential. I have a bachelor's in business administration and marketing. I have a multi-subject teaching credential. I am certified advocate for non-attorney COPA. I'm staying the 1 minute up there. A lot of what I do is help the community and those that are in need. And then when I saw some issues with our district, it really called on my heart, and I felt a responsibility to throw my name in the hat. This is a growth and a learning experience, but what I really am wanting to focus on is literacy, math, the academics, equity, and transparency. And literacy is a big piece. A lot of our students cannot read at grade level. And how are they going to be successful in our community if they are illiterate? And so what I want to do is change things at Fresno Unified to give everyone an equal opportunity to have a seat at the table. And I think that my time is up, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. We'll now be moving on to District 6, starting with Claudia Cazares.
Hi, good evening. I'm Claudia Cazares, and again, thank you to the youth who have organized this event for us today. I'm a 24-year resident of the Hoover High region. I'm one of those people that they call a boomerang. I went away to college and then came back to Fresno because I think that family and community is important. I've lived down the street from Hoover High for the last 24 years, and I'm proud to represent Hoover High region for the last 8 years. I'm also a Fresno Unified mom. My children have all gone through the system. I have 2 Edison High School graduates, go Tigers, and I have my baby who is in 10th grade. And also, during the day, my day job, is I'm a community development and affordable housing professional. And the reason to me that that's important is because I bring those contacts, those partnerships, and those experiences with me to the board that will help us and have helped us bridge the gap and help our teachers ensure that our students are given the best possible education they could get. Moving forward with our community school systems, that is going to be key to ensure that we can build those partnerships in our community schools and then be able to branch out to our other schools. Over the last 8 years, what I'm most proud of is ensuring that there has been a psychologist at every school, that we've added vice principals, that we've added counselors, that we've added nurses, that we've added social workers, because that's the bedrock of how our students will be given the supports to achieve a better life and be better residents for us in the future and be better citizens and better professionals.
Thank you, Ms. Cazares. Mr. Bordona, you may now begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Bordona, and again, like everyone here, thank you for putting this forum on. It's a great opportunity to hear from all the candidates. I was born and raised in Fresno, and I served 33 years in Fresno Unified as a teacher and administrator. I've worked all over the city, middle schools. I taught at Fort Miller, worked at Gaston and Sequoia Middle School, and then high schools, McLean, Edison, and Hoover. I spent 10 years at Hoover. I'm currently back at Edison as a long-term sub. I retired a little over a year ago, and I was still anxious to serve my community and serve my school district. I felt like I had a pretty successful career in Fresno Unified. I loved what I did. I loved working at school sites. I loved working with kids. And even though it was time for me to retire, I wanted to continue that service. Some of my concerns that I saw, especially at the high school level, is that there's been just an erosion of expectations for our kids in terms of academic excellence. We've lowered the bar substantially in the last 30 years, and I think that's a disservice to our students. I believe if we raise the bar, I believe our students will rise to that level and achieve at higher levels. Obviously, we're going to provide supports along the way as we do now, but I just think we need to ask more of our students as we try to prepare them for the next phase in their lives when they leave our system. Currently, we have a graduation rate of about 86%, but about 45 to 50% of our kids in the 11th grade are not reading or writing at grade level, and the math numbers are even worse. And so that's something we need to do something about. School safety is also very important to me, and hopefully we can talk about that more this evening. But I have a lot of experience in terms of school safety, and I'll just close it right there. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening remarks. We will now transition towards our prepared questions. Each candidate will answer each question for 2 minutes. Answering these questions will be starting from District 6 and downwards. Our first question for today, starting with Trustee Claudia Cazares to answer. How would you address existing achievement gaps in performances? What specific strategies and policies would you lead on to ensure that schools are providing proper education and resources towards lower income students, students with IEPs, and students with varying disabilities on campus?
Thank you for the question. How do we address the achievement gap is a question that has been plaguing this district not just for the last several years, it's been plaguing this district for 20, 30, 40 years. Unfortunately, as our community goes, so does our school district go. And so some of the strategies that I brought with me 8 years ago really involved ensuring our community was involved with our schools. And again, like I said earlier, bridging that gap. But internally, most recently, we're focusing on ensuring that our students are at grade level. So how do we do that? We've introduced a literacy initiative. We're going to be introducing more tutoring, which we have already as well. We have a goal of bridging the gap of the 15 difference from standard, points from standard. And so we're really pushing for all of our initiatives to meet the goal of how do we get there? How do we get to our students ensuring that they are bridging that gap? And in regards to our special education department, again, that has been one of the targets of this board. We have analyzed it. We have reorganized the department. We're probably going to go through another reorganization. And it really is a priority for us because those are our neediest students. And as our neediest students, we need to ensure that they are given the tools and the priority and the resources to do good in school and be able to be good citizens when they graduate. So the strategies for me really is ensuring that our teachers are given the tools, that our administrators are given also the tools so they could help their teachers. And we hold our administration accountable in ensuring that we bridge that gap.
Thank you, Ms. Casares. We will now move on to Daniel Bordona response.
Could you repeat the question? There was
Of course.
a lot there.
So the first question would be, how would you address existing achievement gaps in performances? What specific strategies and policies would you lead on to ensure that schools are providing proper education and resources towards lower income students, students with IEPs, and students with varying disabilities on campus?
Okay, thank you. First, I'll address the achievement gap. And I think from my lens and coming from having worked so many years at a school site, I believe we have the expertise in our district to take on these issues and work towards solving the huge achievement gap we have in our district. But I don't think we're asking the right people for their opinions. What we get from our district is district leaders, the curriculum experts, people who have been out of the classroom for, in some cases, 10 or 20 years, making curriculum decisions for our classrooms. And we have the experts in our classrooms right now with, I don't know, close to 4,000 teachers. We have thousands of years of teaching experience in Fresno Unified. And we don't ask the classroom teachers what do they need or what are their ideas for closing these achievement gaps. We also have an over-reliance on outside, thank you. She gave me the time sign. We have an over-reliance on outside consultants to come in and tell our district what we need. And we've been doing this for many, many years. And I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $150 million last year on outside consultants. If these outside consultants were truly getting the job done, we'd see those achievement gaps narrowing, and we're not seeing that. So I'm in favor of relying on our experts that are doing the work day in and day out with our kids. And as for SPED, and I only have a few seconds left here, I think our SPED department is understaffed. My youngest daughter was a special education student in Fresno Unified. I go into the SPED classrooms. There's just not enough support to help those kids bridge that gap and get caught up. So we have the experts. We're just not asking them for how to get the job done.
Thank you, Mr. Bordona. We're now moving on to District 5, starting with current trustee Andy Levine.
Thank you for the question. I want to start with a bright spot, a sign of progress, which is towards our foster students, our foster youth students, which is an area where we have seen some significant improvements in academic outcomes for that category of students, and I think it reflects an intentionality to that, to our foster students. But that's just one category of our most vulnerable students. I think around our unhoused student population, we've seen a significant spike since the pandemic to the point of 700 or so students in Fresno Unified that were designated as unhoused just this past school year. There's a lot more that we can do, I think, for that population, including around leveraging our foundation dollars to actually provide subsidized affordable housing to our unhoused students and families. We've also last year, we've learned the latest data that we are suspending our unhoused students at twice the rate of all other students. That for me is something that should not even be allowed in the first place. And so if it's a matter of alternatives to suspension for students and and decreasing our suspension rates as a whole, I think, is a critical step. Trustee Casares mentioned our literacy initiative, which is our commitment. This is the second year of a 5-year initiative to get all of our students at grade level in reading by the end of first grade. That is important for all of our students, but especially our most vulnerable students. Our A4 initiative is a key piece of that. And then I want to lift up also, we just last year adopted our new 6-year master plan for English learner success, which has been an intentional effort to engage our community and really increasing our reclassification efforts for our EL students and providing intentional supports for that population as well. And then this process we're undergoing now of engaging our community and especially our most vulnerable students and families in identifying what our big North Star goals are for us as a district over the next 5 years has got to include not just lifting up our achievement levels overall, but really intentionally focusing in on our most vulnerable students, of which the reality is our unduplicated pupil count defined by LCAP is 90%, and 80% of our students are low income.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. We're now moving on to James Martinez.
So yes, again, the theme of my campaign is really getting back to the basics and closing student achievement gaps. When you have student population groups, particularly Black and Brown students, who are underperforming 80% and 70% below grade level, both locally and to our statewide counterparts, like that can no longer be acceptable. And so what we really need to do is trying to figure out what the root cause of that underperformance is, and whether that's investing in intervention specialists to reach out and create that relationship and have that dialogue with families, and to determine why chronic absenteeism is happening, why students are continue to underachieve, and build that relationship, so that which Fresno Unified has always struggled to do. We need to reimagine and rethink how we approach our education system, as one size does not fit all. We need to invest in resources that provide extra instructional support outside the classroom, like investing in mobile learning labs where that additional instructional support meets students where they live and in the communities that they live in. We need to be able to increase teacher support, and that means increasing or decreasing class sizes while increasing not student assistants, sorry, I work at Fresno State, and I have a student assistant, but increasing teaching assistants inside the classroom in order to provide more support for the teacher to provide that one-on-one instruction. We also need to continue to promote, which I have done on the County Board of Ed, universal transitional kindergarten to start our students off from ages 3 through 4 so that they're at grade level by the first grade, but no later than the third. We also need to increase student engagement and participation in co-curricular and extracurricular activities to hold them accountable, to make sure that they are meeting, that they are at grade level so they can participate in those programs and have a sense of agency to their school site, and therefore increasing their overall student test scores. So those are just a few things that I believe that we should be doing more in terms of increasing student achievement and closing those student achievement gaps.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Now passing it on to Emma Villa.
Thank you. The theme of my platform is achievement, equity, and transparency. And I think in order to improve the achievement gap, we're going to need to look at the literacy and math issues. My thesis was improving academic achievement, or creating infrastructures for improving academic achievement. I've done this before. I'm familiar with the different elements that are required, and I appreciate both Mr. Martinez and Mr. Levine's input, and those are all part of it. But we also need to look at the curriculum. We need to have evidence-based, data-driven instruction, strategies, training, support for teachers. And in that whole thing, there's also that relationship that the students have at the school. They need to feel valued and welcomed. Many of our students do not feel valued or welcome. Why would they want to come to school if they don't? A lot of them are failing. Why would they want to be in school where they're failing? So we need to encourage them by helping them be successful at school. And for me, that's looking at what the teaching and learning. So we need to really focus in on what are we doing, and are we doing it with fidelity? Too often we are mandating and not providing resources, we're not providing training, and then we're not following up and providing the accountability. When I look at accountability, I look at the top. We look at the superintendent. The next superintendent that we hire is going to be critical, because that person will be accountable for the achievement of our students. That person will be accountable for the administrators that he or she trains, and that for the support that they provide the teachers, because teachers are the backbone of our our education system. They need to have all our support. And in addition to that, when we talk about equity, that is a foundational issue. Right now, I currently advocate for students with IEPs. That is what I do. I'm very familiar with the inequity that's available there. If we can reach the students that are on IEPs, the rest of the students will be successful because we're using the best strategies. The science of reading is something that we need to implement in Fresno Unified that is not being implemented. Thank you.
That is time. Thank you, Ms. Villa. We will now be moving towards District 2, where we'll have current trustee Elizabeth Jonathan Rosa to respond.
So I'll start with, it really starts with us as a board to talk about the achievement gap, but not just the achievement gap, the achievement gaps. Because we need to make sure that when we're addressing the achievement gap, we're moving all of our kids, all of the different, our foster youth, our English language learners, that there isn't disproportionality in that and getting at the heart of equity. And what I mean by it starts with us as a board is with us as a board providing that direction and that leadership of that focus. Because it's easy to look at all the little shiny things and go after all of those in service of our kids. But us providing that focus is what's going to lead the ship. And ultimately, we're the ones responsible. So I don't walk past that. I'll sum it up into two different categories. I think one, we have a lot of programs, and we need to systematically look at what's working and what's not working. Some of that work has already begun. We call it academic return on investment. If we're investing educational dollars, what are our students getting out of it, and what's the improvement that we expect? Whether it be on attendance or social emotional supports or school connectedness, how are we evaluating the effectiveness of those programs and fail quickly, learn, regroup, invest in what's working, and do so in a place that it's safe to do so. Because I know that there's still people that feel that it's not safe to do so within Fresno Unified. And so making sure that the culture enables progress and accountability. So that's one on a systematic level. The other is really implementing this differentiated support. We're starting in our literacy plan to really assess where our kids are and providing that intervention depending on what that kid needs. So I know we've been doing it at different levels, but more systemically being able to intervene to the specifics, knowing where that kid's at. If a kid's not on grade level in reading, is it because of comprehension? Is it because of phonics? Is it because of vocabulary? And so knowing what that kid needs and providing that intervention at that specific time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jonathan. We will be moving on to Joseph Aquino to respond.
Thank you for the question. I just wanted to underscore that in this case, my area has to be the lowest performing in terms of math and literacy. I think in terms of achieving the gaps, we need to have a more collective effort with our educators and our students, because we are the experts within the classroom. I was in the classroom less than 2 years ago, and less than a few months ago, serving as a teacher's aide, where one of my students could not, quite frankly, spell her own name as a third grader. Our English language learners, there is an immediate sense of disconnect by not knowing and understanding the curriculum of what is being taught to them, which ultimately sets them up for failure. Yes, it's really crucial to hold ourselves accountability in terms of allocating the tools and resources to our classrooms and to our students. You know, Fresno Unified is an extremely large school district, and we are performing extremely low. And just like every other candidate, I think our mission is to continue to ensure that we get back to the foundational levels of reading and math within our students. Thank you.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Aquino. As a quick reminder, please keep responses to 2 minutes, and we'll be moving on to question 2. Okay, so starting with District 5 this time. As a trustee, how do you plan to incorporate and include youth voice in district planning, decision-making, and budgeting? And this will be directed to Emma Villa first.
Part of that I didn't hear when you were snapping that.
As a trustee, how do you plan to incorporate and include youth voice in district planning, decision-making, and budgeting?
I got it. Oh, thank you. Okay. Thank you. I think I'm just really impressed that the youth of our community have put this together. And I have youth in my household. I have young college kiddos in my household and some that have just graduated from college. And one of the things that I've realized is the importance of beginning to train and teach them young to get politically involved, to get involved in their schools, to get involved in the community, to get involved in the decisions that affect them. One of my great mottos is nothing about us without us. And so that's what I'm teaching my kids, and that's what I want to teach Fresno Unified students is nothing about us without us. So that means the youth need to be speaking up. We need to be providing opportunities and trainings and forums so that they can learn to use their voice, to exercise their voice in the community and in their classrooms and in Fresno Unified Schools. So providing that opportunity at the level of the school site level, but also giving them the opportunity and a mic at our board meetings so that when they come, that they come to be able to share the things that are important to them and how our decisions are impacting them. And then not only to hear them, but actually to take action upon what they say. Too often, we listen or we pretend to listen, and then we just smile and nod, and then we disregard anything they said. So looking at actionable decisions based on what our students need. We do have representatives at different sites, but we want to make sure that those representatives are actually bringing the voices of the community of their school sites. So I would be looking at creating some kind of program or something that our students would be able to participate in our decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. Can you please pass it to Andy Levine?
Great, thank you for the question. I just want to start by saying I think it was my second day on the job after being sworn in that was just the most inspirational moment when, unfortunately, after a very problematic incident at Bullard in 2022, we had our BSU from Edison in partnership with other BSUs around the district literally march to our education center to demand justice, to demand better for our African American students specifically, and just am continually inspired by our students who are fearless and continue to fight for a much better system, especially for students that are most vulnerable and too often not heard in our system. We're in the process now. We've had, I think, our first LCAT meeting, and we'll have the Fresno High area one will be next month, which is an important and legally required part of getting community input for our the LCFF funding we receive. I think that too often does not represent the full voices and representation of our district, and so certainly engaging our student advisory boards, but also engaging our students who, let's be honest, oftentimes our SAB students are not representative of our most vulnerable students, and so being intentional to really hear the voices in person through surveys and others of our most vulnerable students in decision-making processes, budget processes, and we're, as I've said a couple times now, this process we're going to go through now of really engaging the community on what are the 2 to 3 to 5 big rock goals that we need to commit to and aspire to as a district. That's got to include certainly bringing students and families and educators to our schools or having them at our school sites, but really intentionally going out to the spaces when we know that our students and our families aren't going to necessarily come to our meetings, really us doing a much better job of going to where they are at. So one place that we'll have one of our community meetings is partnering with Fresno Housing and engaging our Fresno Housing tenants and families and students in that process, but that's just one example of how we need to be much more proactive and will be much more proactive in engaging our most vulnerable students in these important decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Levine, or Mr. Levine. Pass it to James Martinez.
It warms my heart when I see young people get involved and actively engaged in the democratic process. You know, as I serve as the director of the student government at Fresno State, and I see this on a daily basis, and I get so giddy you'll be surprised when you give students a voice and a seat at the table, what they can do with it and how far they can run with it. And the initiatives that they come up with is not only surprising, but purely impressive, and it gives you hope for the next generation of leaders that will be entering our society. What we should be doing is, I have a kid that will be attending Fresno High School in 2 short years, and I hope that she will be as actively and engaged in this type of process as me and her other dad are. what we need to do is get them more actively engaged in the shared governance of each of one of our individual school sites, as well as at the district level. As a trustee on the County Board of Education, I led the initiative to add a student trustee position to our board so that students within our area or within the county can have a seat and voice at the table. And that was super important because they have added value. They have an interesting perspective. They have their own viewpoints. And when they are actively engaged in their government, whether it be a school board, whether it be city council, whether it be any other form of government, they are being responsive to their own needs from their own campuses and relaying that to you, and therefore better informing you so that you can make more informed decisions. Fresno High has a rich history of being actively involved and engaged in the community. When I attended there in 2003, there was a huge student-wide campus walkout that went down to district headquarters and demanded that the Board of Trustees increase resources so that they had better learning materials inside the classroom. And that has forever, with the exception of Royce Hall catching on fire in my senior year, that left a lasting impression on me. And that is why, till this day, I am about ears deep in terms of student involvement and being encouraging my students to actively engage.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. We'll be moving down to Area 2, where we're going to start with Joseph Aquino to respond.
Thank you. I just think that this is my question. I'm all for youth voice, and for the past several years, I have been a testament in advocating for student voice. And I made it very clear that as a student and as a student trustee and a student leader is that I've only had one client, and that was our students in the district. Our youth are the backbone to today. And it's so phenomenal to see the work that we can do, especially here as we have many youth leaders who organize this event, which is quite phenomenal. Just echoing, really enhancing our student advisory board, which I took a part of for 2 years in high school, that I'm very proud to be a part of that diverse and phenomenal program that the district provides. And ultimately, my mission is to not just ensure that we mold the student success gaps, but we're molding the generational gap on Fresno Unified's dais that has been active for quite some time. The youth are the backbone to tomorrow, and we really are amazing, and that's all I have to say is that the youth are phenomenal.
Thank you, Mr. Aquino. We will be moving towards Elizabeth Jonathan Rosa to respond.
I'll say I agree, the youth are phenomenal. I'll talk a little bit about what we've done over the past few years because I think it's worth noting. This board has valued student engagement and continually looked for additional opportunities to make sure that we were very intentional about seeking student input into our various processes. Starting with making sure that there were opportunities to engage in the LCAP, listening to students as to what would make it easier for them to participate in school activities and providing their voice. Because it's not just about providing the seat, it's making sure that the kids and the students actually provide and feel comfortable providing their input. And third, it's making sure that they feel listened and heard and that we actually act on their input. So it's not just a perfunctory thing where we provide a seat at the table and we allow them to speak and that's the end of the conversation. It's actually making sure that we're doing the things based on their input. And so I feel like we've done a lot of those things, and I'll give some of those examples. We've expanded focus areas for students as part of our budget process, making sure that they could actually vote and prioritize expenditures and tell us what's working for them. We've provided training for our students at the SAB level. And most recently, we voted to provide a paid stipend, recognizing that our student board members were putting in a lot of effort to give their feedback to us and going back to their students to provide that. So we are paying our student board members, and that's, I think, only fair. Some of the areas where we've listened, we've provided additional field trips, additional CTE and mentoring programs based directly on student feedback, and some of the activities that students have done organizing-wise. We got rid of the dress code based on some actions from students petitioning us. So Student feedback is welcome, important, and
That
we
is
listen.
time. Thank you, Ms. Jonathan. We are now transitioning to Area 6, starting with Daniel Bordona.
Fortunately, in my 30 plus years in the district, I've had the opportunity, and it's all been at the secondary level, so pretty much my entire adult life's been working with teenagers and youth, and I learned pretty early on in my job that the most important thing I can do is to listen first, and so I have a lot of experience in listening to our kids. A few years ago, Hoover started a student voice group, and so I attended that. I can't remember how often we met, but monthly, I think. But I attended those, and after the first meeting, my site principal was there. The students had some good ideas, some things that were beyond the scope of what we could do at the school site. But I told my principal at the time, hey, we need to implement some of these things that the kids are suggesting, because if we don't, they're going to figure out pretty quickly that we're just being condescending. So it's important to listen, but then it's also important to take action. Should I be fortunate enough to win a seat on the board in November, one of the first things I will do, and Califlam is right there, the CCD for Hoover, is find out when those student voice meetings are, and I'll do the same with middle schools, and sit down and listen to their concerns, listen and answer questions should they have questions, and then take their voice back to the board. Education is for the students. I've always realized as a school employee, my job existed because of the students. And so as a board member, I can't forget what the most important, who the most important people are in our system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bordona. We will now transition to Claudia Cazares to respond.
Thank you. One of the most enjoyable parts of being a trustee is actually listening to our children and being there in space with them. Over the last 8 years at Hoover, I've met with our leadership classes and told them, reach out to me. You have my phone number, you have my email. What do you need from us? What is your feedback that you hear from your students and the students at your school? And if you don't hear feedback, ask them. Why are your colleagues not participating in the clubs? What do they need from the trustees differently for us to be able to make participating at school and achieving better grades easier for them? We've also invested heavily in doing our LCAP a little bit differently. Before the LCAP, 8 years ago, was all internal. And we really changed that to ensure not only youth voice was involved, but community voice was involved. And most recently, over the last several years, when we devise our budget, we see columns of this is what the teachers would like to see the budget provide, this is what the students would like to see the budget provide, and this is what the parents would like to see the budget provide for. So we've been internalizing that, making sure we could meet the needs of the students. And one of my favorite things we've done in the last couple of years is the students for many years said, we don't eat your lunch. So we hired a chef. And then we hired several chefs to go around the district. And now the students have not prioritized that as a change because the board invested in what they wanted us to invest in. And now even my son eats the lunch. So it's really about internalizing, listening, and prioritizing what we already hear from our students. And also ensuring that it's easy for them to provide the feedback. They're on their phones most of the day, right? So let's do something electronically so they could easily provide that feedback to us. And then we'll make our decisions based on that.
Thank you, Ms. Cazares. And thank you to all the candidates for your response to question 2. We'll now be moving on to question 3. As a trustee, how do you plan to ensure that the district provides equitable mental health services while also ensuring the needs of staff in regards of the emotional support team? And this will be directed towards, or not directed towards, but starting with District 2, Elizabeth Jonathan Rosas.
Mental health supports for our kids are, it's personal. I am a foster mom, and our kids have experienced things that we don't want anyone anyone to have to experience. And knowing that a lot of our kids go through immense trauma, and then we expect them to just overcome that and learn when they're in their classroom is just not realistic and unconscionable, actually. A few years ago, I sat with a principal, and they were telling me about a student that, was just having a lot of difficulty processing the fact that their dad had shot their mom. And so now, not only are they in a different house and a different environment, they don't have the supports that they need in their processing trauma. And so I say that as just one example of, unfortunately, what a lot of kids have to face. So over the last few years, and in addition to dealing with the trauma from COVID, we have expanded school psychologists year after year, also to deal with SPED. We've done a lot more additional mental health supports and social workers trying to really address sort of the basic needs of our kids, because we know it's a huge gap and we can't expect our kids to be able to overcome that on their own, especially if their parents don't have the resources needed. So it's a space where we as a school district have been proud to step in, and I've been proud to do that, and hope to be able to continue providing the level of support that our kids need so that they can learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jonathan Rosas. We'll now be moving on to Joseph Aquino.
Thank you. I think with my role as being a student within less than 2 years ago, I've experienced a lot, witnessing a lot of hurt within our kids. Even now, at my university, the mental struggles that we face on a day-to-day is real, and it's a lot. Mental health is extremely crucial, and I think I can say that if one's mental health is not where it should be, then our academics do not even play a role. And I'm a testament to that, because I struggled tremendously in our system in the midst of COVID and me figuring out who I am as an individual. Having worked with the Foundation for Fresno Unified Schools, I was fortunate enough to speak with several of our students in, I believe, every school, every high school and elementary school, where we tend to see a large upbringing of mental challenges that our students face. And it's really impactful hearing their struggles and what they go through. Now, I was fortunate enough to co-collaborate with the district's, hopefully, first ever mental health initiative, where we began with focus groups. And it's extremely crucial to have our students rely on each other, because quite frankly, that's all we have when we are in the classroom, is fellow students. Student and partnering with our community medical centers, we are in the first phase of that. And I after I left the foundation, I frequently check in on this initiative because it's near my heart, just to continue to expand on mental health services on all levels, to ensure that we give our students those mental health services even when they need them at home, and really enhancing more resources where our students can take advantage of them and really use it to benefit themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aquino. We are now transitioning towards Area 5, starting with James Martinez.
So this is also deeply personal to me. Having an 11-year-old who, for the first time 3 years ago, never saw the inside of a classroom. I saw firsthand what COVID-19 did to learning, and how difficult and challenging it was for students to readjust to a new learning environment. And even at Fresno State, even with my students who are actively involved in their campus community and engaged, that also had an adverse effect on them. So it's been the learning underachievement and the byproducts of COVID-19 across the full spectrum of our students, whether they're in elementary school, high school, or at college. And so there's a certain type of trauma that comes with that. And so at the County Board of Ed, I worked with my superintendent and my board to approve and construct 13 health and wellness centers that provided mental and emotional health services to students who have trouble adjusting to a new learning environment exiting the COVID pandemic, and provide those extra additional instructional supports to those students as they adjusted to new learning environments. And they also served a dual purpose for family community centers as well, where families could also access those types of resources, because it's not just solely for that the students were struggling; it was the parents as well. I don't know if you've ever done math, fifth grade math with a 10-year-old, but it could also be equally challenging. So that's why we have to be engaged, and we have to hold our school sites accountable and take this into consideration when we develop certain instructional support programs, so that we can continue to close those gaps in instruction and that learning process, and continue to close that learning loss that our students have suffered from. And I'm deeply proud that the county took the lead in establishing those mental health and wellness centers at various school sites throughout the county.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. We will now have Emma Villa to respond.
Thank you. Mental health support, and I probably missed the second part of that question. If you could repeat that.
Yes, of course. So, while also ensuring the needs of staff in regards to the emotional support team.
Okay. Typically, we look at the student, and that's where I'm going to start right now, because I have actually firsthand experience in dealing with both a kindergartner and a high schooler that needed mental health services at school, because while they were at school, they were being harmed. And that translated into them not wanting to go to school, not learning. It affected them at home, in the community, and in the classroom. So through that firsthand experience, I had to do a deep dive. And so what I've learned from that is that we need to create an infrastructure for our students so that they have services on-site or off-site. They need to have access to psychologists, mentors, someone that they trust on-site that they can communicate with, because it makes a big difference that they can come and talk to somebody that they trust. And then if that's not sufficient, then we look at outside resources and recommendations to assist that. So we need to create a system that is holding and supporting our students to be successful at school. If they're not being successful at school, then we're not doing our job. The purpose of them to be at school is for academic achievement, so that can prepare them for the world and to be successful in the world. If they go to school and they're being bullied or they're being harmed and they don't have a voice, then that's not going to prepare them for the real world. So I want to create a system where they not only have the supports they need there, but also so that they learn to be self-advocates, so that they learn to use their voice and they continue to talk until someone hears them, so that they're not students that need to leave the district because they're too afraid to come back to school. And that's kind of what happened with my kiddos. I had to remove them from the school system because one was being threatened to be killed, and the other one was being harmed because he was not able to verbalize what he needed. They both had disabilities. And so I want to create a system where that doesn't happen to anybody else's child. No student should have to go through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. We will now have Andy Levine to respond.
Thank you. Yeah, as Trustee Jonathan Rosas mentioned, my first year on the board, the first budget we passed included a commitment to increase mental health supports for our students by $30 million, including, as she shared, increase in school psychologists across our school sites. Another thing that I'm proud of with regard to our students that we know are most likely on a path towards violence and to gangs and other behaviors that will lead them to the school-to-prison pipeline. 2 years ago at Fresno High, we were able to pilot a partnership with Advanced Peace to be able to identify a cohort of students that we knew were most likely at risk of violence and to mentor them and support them. That's led to a full-time caseworker that has access to the Advanced Peace change agents this year. One thing I would say going forward, there are several different apps now that provide 24-hour mental health supports for students, off-site and on students' own time. We have a request for qualifications now as a district that would allow for us to provide a vendor to provide some of those services where students can access and talk to somebody who looks like them, has a shared lived experience with them, and on their own time. Certainly during school time is important, but you cannot predict when a student's going to have a mental health crisis, and they need to have someone they can talk to whenever that may come about. And then lastly, You may have seen that the governor just signed into law a requirement now that school districts will now have to come up with social media, but a cell phone policy during school hours. We're in the process now of figuring out what that looks like, but certainly engaging our students, engaging our educators. I think a part of the question was, how do you support adults and educators on this topic? When our teachers are having to not only get our students to focus, but compete with cell phones while in classroom, that's a burden on our teachers that is unsustainable. And so we need to figure out how to have a policy that is both fair and balanced, but also make sure our students are not addicted and trapped to their phones and on social media, and able to focus on learning while they're in the classroom. And a part of that also, we just in our last board meeting hired an executive officer on DPI that's building out this process.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. We'll now be moving on to District 6, starting with Claudia Cazares.
Thank you. Again, just to reiterate, we've added 57 school counselors. We've added 21 vice principals. We've added 42 school psychologists. We've added social workers. The social emotional supports as a bedrock to ensure that our students are provided the mental health supports, social emotional supports to ensure that they come to school ready to learn and are able to learn. And how do we address staff? That's a really good question. Part of how we address staff is, again, hiring additional staff members and working with our union partners to reduce class sizes as well. That's such a big stress on our staff and on our teachers. And moving forward, I'm not sure if the community knows, but all of our classes have early release Tuesdays. So we should be ensuring that all of our social emotional workers are also provided training and the tools that they need on those Tuesdays for professional learning, the same way as our teachers have been since the beginning of the year. A couple of other things is we've invested in a program that is finally getting off the books, which is in our Department of Equity and Inclusion. We will have a program manager that oversees all of our Latino student unions we'll be creating across the district, which will incentivize our students to participate in their schools. We're also created a program that will look at our students that are suffering early on and figure out how to provide interventions for them. Because the board is who oversees our expulsions, and we asked our interim superintendent, and she has provided a staff person who started a couple of weeks ago to ensure that those students are provided the supports and the interventions so that they are not expelled.
Thank you, Ms. Cazares. Now on to Daniel Bordona.
I don't think I heard too much that I would disagree with. Mental health, really it's a crisis, not just in our schools and our community. In general, you look at our homeless issues, a lot of those issues rise out of mental health issues that probably if there was intervention earlier on could have had different outcomes. I too have had personal experience with a child in crisis. My oldest daughter, when she was a senior at Edison, I got a call from the school that they were going to 5150 her for suicidal ideation, which that began a kind of a long several-year process of getting her mentally healthy. I think my concern is we have a lot of supports in place at the high school level. I don't know how much support we have at the elementary school level. We have so many of our kids, as soon as they walk through our doors, at 3 or 4 years old, that have already suffered significant trauma that I will have to admit I have no conception of because that was not my upbringing. I'm sure if we did an ACEs score for all of our kids, we would be pretty shocked by the numbers that we see. So I would like to see more focus at the elementary and the middle school level. Again, as a middle school teacher and administrator, middle school kids are a lot of fun. But a lot of times they are both academically and social emotionally, there's not a lot of focus on kids at that age. Thank you. I gave back some of my time I took earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Bordona. Oh, okay. Thank you all candidates for answering our Thank you all candidates for answering our pre-knowledge. I lost my words. The questions we have prepared for the event. We'll now be moving on to the community questions, and we'll be starting off with District 6, Daniel Berdona. First question is, also, all candidates have 1 minute to answer community questions. Okay, starting with our first community question. Our community asks a lot of questions about resources for students and families. In particular, 3 areas emerged: resources for newcomers, traffic safety, housing services. How would you support each of these areas?
I'm just thinking about the 60 seconds. So I think we're starting to get there with the community schools approach that we're taking, because it takes more than just Fresno Unified to deal with the issues in our community. It takes a community-wide effort, and so I'm glad to see that we're reaching out more to our city and county government services to help with a lot of the needs that our students have. Traffic safety. I unfortunately was at Hoover that evening, 4 years ago, when we had a student who was hit by a car crossing First Avenue, and he passed away. And again, the city, and I'm sure with pressure from the district, has, at least around Hoover, because that's where I live, really beefed up traffic safety in that area. I hope that's happening around our other schools. I don't really see that when I drive into Edison every day. It seems like it's still sort of a free-for-all.
That is time. And I'll pass it on to Ms. Cazares.
Thank you. Right up my alley. So housing services, the district actually has a whole department for housing services for the homeless. They work with your county, they work with the city, they work with other cities. We just need to make sure that they're properly funded. And so working with ensuring our interim superintendent provides a good round budget for the housing services that are already there. They know where the resources are. The city has millions of dollars of funding for housing. We just need to be better partners with them. Traffic safety, the board initiated traffic safety, safe routes to school studies, including Hoover. There will be a change to the way Hoover students are dropped off as a direct result of the study that was provided, as well as Tioga. We will be expanding that to other schools as well. And how do we provide resources for newcomers? My family I have a newcomer at home. So we provide language services, we provide housing services, and we provide them the tools in this community that will make sure that they are integrated into the community as quickly as possible, but ensuring that their culture survives.
It is time. Thank you, Ms. Casares, and we'll move on to Area 2 with Joseph Aquino's response.
Thank you for the question, and I really want to underscore the importance of traffic safety. Mr. Bordono and I was present during my time as a student and him as a VP, where we lost a student, one of my classmates. And it impacted our students on another level. And in my area, where we had an incident where we've had someone running into a bus stop where students were present, I do want to underscore that it does take a collective effort from not only just the district, but from community members and city officials to ensure that we enhance safety measures across on all boards. And with the housing, I've had several students who I know their story of them being homeless, and their parents nor them didn't understand what resources were ultimately provided. I do think that we can do more by amplifying what is already established and continuing to improve on what is being provided to our kids.
That is time. Thank you, Mr. Aquino. We will have Elizabeth Johnson Rosa to respond now.
Thank you. The totality of circumstances that are in Fresno affect our kids. With these issues and all the other issues of poverty that our community face affect our schools. And so this is no different, and the answer I say to all of this is really, truly partnerships. Community and schools and all of us leading the charge and working together. I'll go really quickly. For the traffic, it's really working with the city and county. I established and started the board, that's the city and county partnership, the city partnership with educational institutions for safe routes to school, and looking at those safety plans that Trustee Casares mentioned. On housing, we have Project Access and really case workers that are working with the entire family as well as Parent University, because it's not just the student impacted, it's the entire family that needs social workers. And so obviously we need the help of our CBOs there. And for our newcomers, when we had an influx of, for example, Syrian refugees, it was really working with our CBOs and our nonprofit partners on that.
Thank you, Ms. Jonathan Rosas. We'll now be moving on to District 5, starting with Andy Levine.
So for our unhoused student population, I mentioned already, but I'll just expand a little bit, working with our Project Access team to propose some foundation dollars to be able to subsidize affordable housing for some of our unhoused, as many of our unhoused students and families as possible. On traffic safety, the Safe Routes to Schools assessment is underway, and we're seeing some results in places that are unfortunately in response to some tragic deaths and injuries already. So we need a lot more support from our city partners especially. Measure H will be, I think, a critical step to improving some of our Safe Routes to Schools around our schools and around our newcomer students, expanding our dual immersion schools. We currently have, I believe, 19 dual immersion schools, expanding more of those to additional languages as well. And I do believe, and I've seen other places, community schools being targeted specifically for newcomer families and students to be able to provide a sort of a one-stop shop for newcomer families to be able to get direct services and supports on sites instead of having to go to multiple different places all over the city.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Now on to Emma Villa.
Okay, thank you. When I'm looking at traffic, housing, and newcomers, I think it falls under our city community partnerships as well as our schools. When we look at housing, there are programs in the city that we need to make sure that our students and families are tapped into, as well as for our newcomers, to make sure that they have access to all the services we already have available. When we look at traffic, I'm looking at also at our city partners, but also at our school sites. Supervision is something that we have the student from the time they get to campus to the time they get home. So we need to make sure that we are doing everything at our school sites to provide the safety in traffic, as well as working with our partnerships. And again, just making sure that we connect our newcomers to all services that are available. And if we discover that we need other services, then we need to look at implementing and developing those services to assist our newcomers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. Now on to James Martinez.
I'll try to do just under a minute. So traffic safety, there needs to be a comprehensive traffic safety analysis for each and every school site that our students attend. I firmly believe that we need to bring back crossing guards so that students can safely cross our streets across major intersections. I drop my kid off 3 to 4 days a week at Hamilton, and getting across Palm is almost next to impossible to do. I can't imagine that any kid could do that on their own. Again, I'd like to echo what a lot of us have said already, that addressing homeless youth as well as... Oh, okay.
Okay.
Can I reclaim part of that time? All right, let me get back to... So homeless youth, again, that's community partnerships with the city and the county to provide resources to them and increase our social workers in order to connect not just students but their families to those resources as well. We need to work again with the city for a traffic safety analysis, and then also, I agree, community schools are a big part in integrating our immigrant students and making sure that they have the resources available to succeed not only in the classroom but also thrive in our community as well. Those are things that we need to focus on in terms of providing a holistic and well-rounded approach to those issues.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. We will now be moving on to our next community question. How do you plan to find a balance between Okay, I'm gonna start that over. How do you plan to find a balance between maintaining security and fostering a school environment where all students feel supported and non-threatened? What is your vision for school safety, and does it include police? We'll be starting with District 2, Joseph Aquino.
Thank you for the question. I think for many of us, and I see a lot of students and educators present today, is I think we can't even count on our hands how many active shooter drills we do in a school year. I think one of our biggest fears, and mine as a student, is an incident and a horrific incident like that happening on campus. I recently had this discussion where I do think that there needs to be some form of laws and policy established on a higher up, on local, on legislative levels and federal levels to ensure that our students are safe and that we have gun regulations and that extra security. I do think until we get to that standpoint that me as a student and a current student at Fresno State is that I would feel more comfortable knowing that we have an armed individual on campuses to ensure that our students are safe.
Oh, my fault. Time. On to Ms. Jonathan Rosas.
Thank you. Safety is really part of a larger conversation, so I'll limit to what I think we can address. And it's really truly the number one thing I get at the door when I'm talking to parents, but people think of safety in different terms. So I'll say safety from a level of a basic facility safety. Are your facilities in good working order? Do you have mold? All those kinds of things, and we're addressing that, and hopefully with the passage of the bond, we'll be able to do more on that. But what I truly believe people are asking about is emotional safety, feeling that that place that they're going to every day is a safe place for that. And for that, when I first started, we implemented a safe place resolution so that our kids knew that they could be safe being whoever they are on their campus. So that's one. And really fostering that interconnectedness and relationships, making sure that our kids felt like there were safe people on campus, that people cared about them. And I really truly feel that that's the foundation of safety. If people feel that that's a place where they are cared about, they are more likely to seek the resources that they need. They are more likely to open up.
That is time. Thank you, Ms. Jonathan Rosas. We're moving on to Area 6, starting with Daniel Bordona.
I've used safety, school safety from two lenses. I think there's external safety. How do we keep outside intruders from coming onto our campus? And then internal safety. How do we create a positive culture and learning environment on our campus where kids are feeling safe? With limited time, I'm just going to focus on that internal safety. We have structures in place in our district already. I worked in the climate and culture department at the district office, and that was our main focus. How do we help schools create a positive, safe learning environment? Unfortunately, when I was working downtown, I found that not all schools were implementing strategies to make the schools internally safer. And that's an issue that I have with Fresno Unified. When we have good programs, there are too many site leaders who are allowed to freelance and do what they want to do instead of using the practices that we know work. And so I think we need to really increase our internal safety.
That is time. Thank you, Mr. Bordona. Now we'll have Claudia Casares to respond.
Thank you. You know, how does a student feel safe at school, and how do we make sure that the families know their students feel safe at school? It means different things for different people. So we do have to look at it through two different lenses. And the board has recently invested heavily in physical safety and adding community service officers for our schools, but also ensuring that they're properly trained and they think of the student first. They're not security guards. They're there to ensure our students feel safe and the teachers feel safe as well. We also, I believe that students will feel safe when they feel welcomed at school. There's a survey out there this month around the same time every year that asks them, is there an adult on campus that cares for you? When a student answers no to that, that means they are unsafe, unhappy, and they're not learning. So we need to take that feedback school by school and ensure that every one of our students can answer yes to that question, that there is an adult on campus that cares about them. And we will be providing those resources to our schools moving forward, ensuring that.
Time. Thank you, Ms. Casares. We're going to transition to Area 5, starting with James Martinez.
Okay, 1 minute. So this starts with a culture of accountability and figuring out, and developing a comprehensive safety plan for each and every one of our school sites, while also supporting our administrators and setting a fundamental understanding of what is acceptable on campuses and what is not, and while also supporting them in their decision when disciplinary action is needed, provided that's within board policies. Also, we need to be able to set the expectations and support or figure out where campus resource officers are needed, also and if more security cameras are needed as well on school campuses. There's been, at Fresno High, there's a stabbing this year, there's a shooting at McLean. These are things that we need to start taking into consideration when we start thinking about student safety and school site safety, not just for our students, but our faculty and staff and other people who are at our school sites as well. And so far, the district hasn't produced anything that addresses any of that.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. We'll now move forward to Emma Villa.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Martinez in creating comprehensive safety plan for not only our district, but at each site. And one of the things that I think when we look at, safety, we do look at two prongs. One is the facilities. The other one is the sites and the students and the staff. Do they feel safe? Safety should be a non-negotiable. And it's building a culture, a community, a family in our school. This is our school family, and this is why we work together to create a safe culture. So everyone should have input on what that should look like. Sometimes having police officers on site, for some individuals, that doesn't make them feel safe. They feel unsafe. So they need to have a relationship with those that are there to protect them. So we need to build those as well. Instead of students feeling the police officers are there to harm them, they need to know that they're there to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. We'll now have Andy Levine to respond.
Thank you. A few steps, and I want to try to have time to get to the answer at the end. So we've expanded our non-law enforcement campus safety assistance to all elementary schools. Measure H will help us to get to single point of entry for as many of our schools as possible, if not all schools. We're building out an anonymous hotline for students to be able to report issues where they have concerns around safety. Expanding partnerships like the one I mentioned around advanced peace and making sure we're investing in and sort of supporting our students that we know are most at risk towards a path towards violence. And if we can take all those steps to build out those supports, I hope we have a future where we do not feel a need to have SROs, police on campus.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. We'll now be moving on to our third community question. Many teachers feel undervalued. In your opinion, what is causing this, and what have you done to make your teachers feel respected? And this will be starting with District 6 with Claudia Cazares.
It disheartened me to hear that our teachers feel undervalued because my students went through the district as well, my children did, and I still have one. And I value my kids' teachers throughout the years, especially my youngest one, and the services he's been provided and the education he's been provided. So whatever words you hear from me, understand that we do value you, this board does value you. And one of the issues we've dealt with most recently is teacher pay. And so we've done studies like we're required to do, but we do ensure that our teachers are one of the valued, and it shows in their pay, as well as reducing class sizes. Again, that is so stressful for our teachers when they hit the class and they're having way too many students. They can't provide the service and the education our students need. And our students feel like the teachers don't care about them and don't feel valued as well. But I do want the teachers to know that as a board, we're always here for them. They could send us emails or texts. They know we have our cell phone is publicly available.
Thank you, Ms. Cazares. Real quick, there was a mistake in the question. I will restate it now with the correct wording. Many teachers feel undervalued. In your opinion, what is causing this, and what will you do to make sure your teachers feel respected? And I'll continue on with Daniel Bordona.
So part of the reason why I'm running for school board is that I want to represent the people that work at the school sites. That includes our students, our teachers, our other support professionals at the schools. I feel like their voices are not heard, and when you're not heard, you feel undervalued. I'd like to just hand the microphone to Cal LaFlamme, since they're a teacher that I've worked with at 2 different sites, and they could explain, I think, how I've put a focus on valuing our teachers and other site employees. That's something I will continue to do as a board member. I said earlier that one of the first things I wanted to do was reach out to student groups. The other first thing I want to do is go to the school sites and meet with not just the admin staff, meet with the faculty, so they can know who their board member is. They can know that I am there to serve. To me, this is a service job, and I want to continue serving my district.
And that is time. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Berdona. We'll now be moving on to District 5, starting with Emma Villa.
Thank you. I am a teacher, and I've been an administrator as well. And as a teacher, I can tell you that when my administrator provided me the support I needed when I needed it and listened to me, and there was action behind it, I felt valued. When my salary was appropriate for the work that I was doing, I felt valued. When I was provided all the training that I needed in order to address the mandates and have the resources for the mandates that were given to me, then I felt valued. So as a trustee, I would want to ensure that the teachers receive all the supports and services and the pay that they deserve, that they have the class sizes that are appropriate for them. Our teachers are the backbone. We need to listen to them. We need to support them with all the services and supports that they need, and that's one of the biggest things that I want to address, because they are the ones that will lead our students to academic achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. We'll now be passing on to Andy Levine.
Thank you. As similar to Ms. Villa, I teach at Fresno State. I was raised by two educators, so I know firsthand what the research tells us, that teachers are the most important predictor of student success and improving student outcomes. I hear the question, it's undervalued but also overburdened. Our teachers are being asked to do way more than just teaching in the classroom. A example of that, a step towards that is community schools is providing the wraparound, the broader support so that teachers can focus more and more on teaching in the classroom instead of having to be a social worker, a psychologist, all the things they're being unofficially asked to do. Measure H, I think rightly, intentionally has a third of the $500 million is devoted towards investments in reducing class size, which is an important step in investing in our teachers, and just continuing to make sure that teachers are heard throughout the process, not just as we go towards the end of a bargaining cycle, but an entire year-round process to really engage our teachers and to imagine and vision together.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. We'll now pass it on to James Martinez.
So I can understand why teachers feel undervalued and overworked. Just a few months ago, the district almost went on a strike because of the relationship between teachers and the administration. And that's because there haven't been proactive approaches to have those critical and crucial conversations about what teachers need and understanding what they need in the classroom as well as outside of it as well. We need to have a culture of accountability where teachers feel okay with holding the administration accountable when they are not receiving the resources that they need. This is the largest underutilized group of experts in the area that we have teaching our students, and they are not being respected, they're not being listened to, and they're being pushed to the side with the decision-making process at the district level that is excluding them. They're the ones who are inside of the classroom on the front lines teaching our students, and none of their input, even when it is given, is taken into account and implemented for district-wide policies. I would also implement regional meetings within each region with school site administrators to determine what those needs are.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. We're now going to go forward with Area 2, starting with Joseph Aquino.
I just wanted to underscore that teachers built me, and I'm very proud to say that. Teachers molded me to who I am today, and I hear a lot of their frustrations, and during my time as a student trustee, I've heard a lot of their concerns and issues. The reality of what goes on in the classroom is real. Then again, echoing an individual who does more than just teach is Cal Flom, an individual who really has helped me in such an impactful way and will continue to do so with many other students, I'm sure. I do want to underscore is that I've heard constantly, and it is a factor that plays into why the teacher strike was very close was because teachers felt like they weren't heard on levels such as the Fresno Unified Dais. Ultimately, issues being ignored where our teachers felt isolated and having to deal with these problems and scenarios alone. It's so crucial to give teachers the resources that they need because it creates a successful environment for our students.
Thank you, Mr. Aquino. We're now going to pass it on to Elizabeth Jonathan Rosas.
Thank you. Echoing some of the themes. When our staff, including our teachers, don't feel supported and they feel overwhelmed and stressed, just like when our kids feel those same ways, they're not performing at their ultimate potential, and it affects our kids and our entire environment. So it's incredibly important that everybody feel welcome and part of the Fresno Unified family and processes, and that we authentically listen. And it does start at the top. As a board member, take full responsibility for that culture and making sure that it changes. And I think we've moved in positive directions. We were moving towards interest-based bargaining, and we were implementing that with some degree of success. I'm hoping we can get back to that. We've done some working together, and I would hope that our teachers here in the room would feel the same way in terms of our work with facilities, our work with making sure that interests are heard and there's an opportunity for a continual meeting, which is happening. Again, as a school board member, take full responsibility for creating that space.
Thank you, Ms. Jonathan Rosas. Real quick, we want to provide Claudia Cazares the chance to answer the question with the proper wording. So we'll give you 30 more seconds. Yeah, We'll ask the question again with the proper wording, and you have 30 seconds to answer. Many teachers feel undervalued. In your opinion, what is causing this, and what will you do to make sure your teachers feel respected?
The teachers feel undervalued for many reasons, but I think the main point is that there needs to be a better relationship between the administration and the board and our teachers. We rely a lot on our administrators to reach out to our teachers, but if that is not enough for our teachers to feel valued, then that's got to change. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm always available to my teachers. We attend all of our school events, as many as possible. We will continue to do that and be present for our teachers. But if we need to reach out directly to our teachers moving forward directly, then that's what will happen.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Cazares. We're going to move on to the fourth question, and it is, what is the one broken system in FEOC that is day one would you hold your attention? What would success look like for you? We're going to start with District 5, James Martinez.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, of course. I'm so sorry. So, what is the one broken system in FEOC that is on day one would hold your attention? What would success look like for you?
Just one? So there are multiple ones, and this is where we need to focus on closing student achievement gaps and increasing student engagement, not just within the classroom, but outside as well. And one of the ways that we can increase student achievement and close student achievement gaps is having them actively engage in extracurricular activities, whether that be music, arts, theater, sports, football, aquatics, a host of other things that are on campus that give them a sense of agency and hold them accountable and engaged within their campus community. Being involved in those extracurricular activities will be hold those students accountable because they have to keep their grades up. They have to attend class on a regular basis. Those are the things that we need to start implementing and merging with in a co-curricular sense to increase student engagement and closing those student achievement gaps. So that's what I would focus on, and that's the theme of that's been the theme of my campaign, is getting back to the basics in reading, math, and writing, while also supporting those extracurricular programs as well.
That is time. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. We're going to pass it on to Andy Levine.
I'll say it again, the process that we're about to undergo starting next month around really being laser focused on improving student outcomes and not having that mean dozens, if not hundreds of different initiatives and goals, really engaging our community in the very small number of big goals over the next 3 to 5 years that we should be laser focused in on. And then from there, it's when we use that to find the best possible superintendent to lead our district. It's that person needs to be enabled, but then held accountable to implementing those goals. I'll just close by saying one of the reasons I ran, a quote that's always resonated with me was the former mayor of Stockton, Michael Tubbs, had a quote that was, I may butcher it a little bit, but it was talents and intellect are universal, resources and opportunities are not. And I saw that firsthand at Fresno Unified, that students at school with me that were just as hardworking, just as smart as me, did not have the opportunities and resources I had that I was born into. And so doing everything we can to make sure that students have the same opportunities to be able to thrive in our system and graduate ready for college and career.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. We're going to pass it on to Emma Villa.
Thank you. The first thing that I'd want to focus on is equity. I think equity is the foundational issue that we're dealing with, because whether we have a school on one side of town, and depending on the zip code, your scores in reading and math might be much better than if you have a zip code area that are not so, that where you don't have as many services. So I want to make sure that all our students have equal access and equity to the same academic programs that are available to all students, especially in literacy and math, and then extracurricular. We have in Area 5, our aquatics program. Our students should be able to have the opportunity to learn to swim. Our aquatics program needs to be developed so that we have a competitive aquatics program with some of the other areas. It baffles me why our aquatics program doesn't have equity. And this is just symbolic of a lot of the other issues that we have at Fresno Unified with equity. So equity across every area is the focus that I would have day one.
That is time. Thank you, Ms. Villa. We're going to move on to Area 2 with Elizabeth Jonathan Rosa.
I too am reminded of a saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go with others. And I really believe that the theme of all of this has been really talking to everyone and making sure all the stakeholders are involved in our decision making and are authentically taken into consideration. And so I think one of the things I've learned is that we are a big system. We have a lot of things that are not the best way. And the way we have to go about it is bringing everybody along and talking to people that are part of the process and using their input to fix it. The laser-like focus on our academics that we're going to as a board and making sure that we set the vision, goals, guardrails for the next superintendent is going to be the next near-term thing. The long-term thing is really fixing that equity in our achievement and being that focus. But I do want to set the expectation that in order for us to have an inclusive process, that it's not going to be tomorrow.
That is time. Thank you, Ms. Jonathan Rosa. I'm going to pass it on to Joseph Aquino.
Before I answer my question, can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, of course. So it states, what is the one broken system in FASC that is day one would hold your attention? What would success look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit difficult to just identify one when there's so many, but just really underscoring student success rates. I think that's so crucial. Like James mentioned before, is that having students involved in extracurriculars is extremely crucial. Me being in leadership and student council really helped me really get back on track and succeed and walk that stage at the State Mart Center. And I do think that is extremely crucial to not only creating a foundational skill that some students gain from that experience, but it ultimately sets them up for success after high school. I also do think providing our students with vocational training, as many don't have the idea of going to college. To go into that workspace and continuing to enhance college and career readiness for our students is extremely crucial in terms of increasing our academic rates.
That is time. Thank you, Mr. Aquino. All right. So then you go with this.
Yeah, we have it on.
Okay. We're moving on to District 6, starting with Daniel Berdona.
Is this another 60-second question? Okay. Take a little different approach. Obviously, student achievement is a top priority, but hearkening back to my first educational psychology class in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basic needs and safety before anything else can happen. And I think we can get some early, easy wins on safety in our district by providing across the board consistent expectations for our students and our staff, and having total staff buy-in on those expectations. When you have a system where there's predictability in how things are operating, people feel safer, and that's just not with kids at schools, that's anywhere in life. Predictable expectations, predictable way that things are enforced or followed through with makes everyone feel safer. Once we're feeling safe, we'll start to see some of those gains on the academic piece happening.
Thank you, Mr. Berdona. Moving on to Claudia Casares.
Thank you. I think moving forward the next couple of years, me in particular, but I think the entire board, we're laser focused on student achievement and closing that, the grade level gap. And everything that comes to the board moving forward will be viewed through that lens. How does this move, how does this close the achievement gap? Everything. If it's not gonna meet that, don't bring it to the board. We're gonna vote it down, we're gonna tell you to take it out of the agenda. We are laser focused. We have provided staff and the administration with the bedrock so that the teachers and the students could have what they need to close that achievement gap. There is no reason that we can no longer close that achievement gap, provided the correct tools.
Thank you, candidates, all for answering the panel and community questions. We will now be transitioning towards the closing remarks, which each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. We will begin from District 2 going down, starting with Joseph Aquino.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank all of the candidates for being present today. I think it just shows that we all have the same mission, and that is to amplify student success here in Fresno. As I mentioned before, you know, for several years, I have advocated for students and student voices, and my mission with this is to enhance and expand on math and literacy rates, increase English language learner graduation rates, which we really need to focus on, providing our students and staff with mental health support, and limiting the school-to-prison pipeline, which ultimately also follows into ending the cycle of poverty, especially in my area. And ultimately being a present representation for our students and our staff. I think that's extremely crucial to tackling on the issues that go on into our classrooms every single day.
Thank you, Mr. Aquino. We will now move forward towards Elizabeth Jonathan Rosa.
Thank you, and I too am heartened for the future. For all of us seem to have our heart in the right place, and I think that's the most important part. As a parent, an EL learner myself, daughter of immigrants, divorced parents, businesswoman, master's degree from Fresno State, just a bit of my background. I have lived experience, but also the academic experience to contribute to Fresno Unified. I started on this journey when I taught at Fresno State and saw some of the needs of our students, and I was really moved to get at the root of the issue, which is our K through 12 education system. I have the heart, the knowledge, and the support of hopefully many of you to be able to continue in this journey fighting for our kids. In me, you have an advocate that cares about equity and all of our kids.
That is time. Thank you, Jonathan Rosas. We'll now be moving forward to Area 6, where we're going to begin with Claudia Casares.
First, I want to congratulate my husband on his birthday. Thank you for being here and showing the dedication to the community. But that really just shows that my family as a whole is dedicated to this community. They have supported me over the last 8 years and will continue to support me if I'm reelected. And I really want to just thank the community here today as well. You've taken a time out of your busy day to hear the candidates. Like Elizabeth said, I think we all have our heart in the right places. It's the experiences that we bring to the board that are all a little bit differently, and I think that's what is going to make the difference when you go vote. I also want to add that the rest of my time I'll want to talk about Measure H. Regardless if I get reelected or not, this community needs to pass Measure H because some of our schools are failing structurally, and it's not fair for our students and our teachers to have to show up every day to teach and learn in facilities that are not up to par. So whatever you can do to help us get the word out to pass Measure H, which is being implemented together with the Teachers Association and the equity tool, I would appreciate it.
That is time. Thank you, Ms. Casares. We're going to move forward towards Daniel Bordorna.
So just in closing, I'm doing this because after 33 years as a teacher and administrator, it becomes who you are. This is a matter of heart for me. I have worked with kids, again, 30 years all over our community, not always successfully. You don't win every time. But even though I'm retired, I'm not ready to quit. I love my community, I love my school district, and I want us to do better. And I want to be part of a group that helps make us better as a system. Education for our kids is the most important thing for them in terms of life outcomes. Getting a good education gives them choices in life to do whatever they choose to do. But if we continue to rob our kids of that solid education, we're robbing them of opportunities in life.
That is time. Thank you, Mr. Bordona. We're going to move forward towards Area 5, starting with Andy Levine.
Just appreciation again for our students, our leaders here, our organizations for putting this on, and also I'll just say appreciation for all the candidates on this panel for all the great ideas and dialogue here. I'm a little worried that those closest to me can hear my stomach growling, so I apologize for that. But I'll just close by saying I didn't think I'd ever run for public office or elected office. 2 years into this role, I am this is the honor of my life to be in this role. I'm so glad that I did. I'm more convinced than ever this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm also more convinced than ever that this is the last political job I ever want to have. But it'd be my honor to have 4 more years to be making a difference in the areas that I expressed. And I'll just echo what Trustee Casares said, that we really need to get Measure H passed. It'll be, unfortunately, we have $2.5 billion in need. This is just $500 million, but it'll go towards our most urgently needed investments around our school facilities. And so, again, any support you can provide to get the word out and to consider that on your own ballot, if you haven't already submitted it, would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. We'll now pass it on to James Martinez.
Well, it's such an honor to be up here with the candidates running for office. I never thought I would be here 20 years after graduating Fresno High School in 2004 as a candidate to represent my alma mater. I feel like I have a special connection to the high school, not just because I graduated from it, but also because I share the lived experience of over 60% of its student population. The theme of my campaign is really simple. It's getting back to the basics to improve student achievement outcomes in reading, math, and writing, while also supporting extracurricular programs such as the arts, theater, sports, football, aquatics, and others. My pledge is to be an active and hands-on trustee, engaged and accountable to not just the school sites, but also the community and the public as well. Education was the #1 thing that broke the cycle of poverty for myself and my family, which is how I'm able to provide not just for myself, but my own family as well. I see the future in my own kid who will be attending Fresno High School in 2 short years, and that is why I'm doing this.
That is time. Thank you, Mr. Martinez, and we will have Emma Villa to lastly respond.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone that's attending here today. I'm running because I believe that every student deserves an equal access to an excellent education, irregardless of their zip code. As an advocate and educator, I've worked with individual students, but that's not enough. I realize that I need to have a seat at the table because the table was not listening to us. So I felt the responsibility to run. I'm up here running because I feel like our students' voices are not being heard, our families' voices, our community's voices are not being heard. I want to hear that, and I want to be that voice, not because I have nothing else to do. It would be a public servant a responsibility that I would take very seriously to make sure that my constituents all had their voices heard. I see education as a civil right. Once you have it, no one can take it from you. But if you don't have it, you do not have a seat at the table. And I applaud that Mr. Martinez had that opportunity. A lot of our students do not have that opportunity. Equity is how they'll get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Villa. All right, now we'll be, excuse me. And now we'll be moving on to our closing. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of hungry, so let's get on with this so we can go ahead and get on home. Thank you again to all our candidates for joining us today. And thank you to the students, young people, and community members here. And let me rephrase that. Thank you to the students, young people, and community members here and tuning in online. Election day is now. You can vote early by turning in your ballot in the mail or dropping it in a drop box in town. The last day to vote is Tuesday, November 5th. I will state that again. The last day to vote is Tuesday, November 5th. We must show up to vote and make our voices heard on the issues that matter to us. Be sure to grab your vote plan guide on the way out if you would like to register to vote or want to check your voter registration status. Stop by the Power California table. Lastly, thank you again to the Big Red Church for providing this location and to all the organizations and young people that helped make this event possible. Have a good night, everyone.
Can we get another applause for our facilitators, Xiomara and Amari?